Yes, I do.
All right.
We light this candle in recognition of and appreciation for the Christ light within each of us and the presence of the divine in our gathering.
Thank you. Well, good morning, all you fathers out there. Good morning, all you wannabe fathers. I'm not seeing any wannabe fathers. Well, anyway, happy Father's Day. Let's start with a few announcements and get this show on the road. Come on, man, chill. Wednesdays and Fridays, 7 o'clock. You are certainly welcome to join us. If you'd like a program on Monday night, let me know what you'd like to participate in, and we'll run that up the flagpole and see who salutes. Financial statements are available on via the newsletter, and of course, if you'd like any conversations, please give me a call, email me, livingwaterunity@comcast.net or 720-935-3999. Pam or Kay, did you have any updates on the search team activities?
No update today.
No update today. All right. Doug, if you would, I'm going to mute everyone because last week there was an open mic that was interrupting. I'm not sure who it was, but I'm going to mute everyone, including me. And Doug, if you would unmute yourself. There we go. Okay, so everybody's muted, and I'm
just like unmuted. You muted me back. Okay, I got it.
Okay, and thank you, Doug. And our affirmation of living water unity. If you choose to join the cacophony, please do so. Living Water Unity is a thriving spiritual community inspired to embrace and share our abundant good now. I'm empowered for joyful living by expressing God in each moment. And fatherly love. Who would like to share our daily word this morning? Remember to unmute yourself.
I'll do it. I haven't done it for a while.
Okay.
Our daily word is fatherly love. I give thanks for my father and all expressions of fatherly love. I treasure my childhood memories of feeling safe when my father or a father figure in my life was nearby. I remember my father's encouragement as I was learning to ride a bike, as we explored the wonders of nature together, and as he taught me to use money wisely. Even when I made youthful mistakes, my father's sometimes stern, but always wise judgment helped me find the way back to my right path. I give thanks for both the sacred human and the unfolding expression of God within my father, and everyone who has blessed me with fatherly love. Today I pray for my father and for all fathers, affirming for each of them growing wisdom, understanding, and willingness to nurture others with a father's encouraging love. Our scripture is, as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. I don't know, that's blocked out, so I can't see that part.
That's from John 15:9. Okay. Thank you. And our affirming prayer. So as we offer this affirming prayer, we will also ask for your contributed prayers, and we'll hold each of those prayers singly in this crucible of unconditional love. And this power of our collective focus on unconditional love amplifies the prayer. So we rest in the awareness of God's love, has no end, and is a power that knows no bounds. God's healing power of divine life is restoring, healing, and revitalizing our world and our lives in this very moment. We let go of any fears or anxieties, affirming that divine order is now, has always been, and will always be at work in our lives. We bless our global family with the vision of fulfilling and empowering relationships filled with an abundance of love. We express our own divinity as we think, say, and do. And so it is, and I invite your prayers now.
I ask for safe and uneventful travel for our daughter Holly, her husband Matt, our son Carl, as they travel from California to Arvada to spend 2 weeks with us.
And so it is. Healing prayers for Betty. Strength, healing, peace of mind.
I'd like to
And so it is.
So it is.
I'd like to say thank you for health and healing on myself. Wonderful news this week that everything is looking fine and dandy, and no more trips to the hospital for 3 months.
And so it is.
I'd like to have us offer prayers for the single moms who are today helping their children understand Father's Day and the absence or in their family. Take care of them.
And so it is.
I'd like to give a prayer of gratitude for the health of and presence of my dad, that he continued to be strong and with me after his 90th birthday.
And so it is.
I'd like to ask for prayers for John and Nancy Turek. They used to be in this congregation. They were going to try and get on today, but it looks like they haven't made it on here. Nancy's dealing with dementia, and so is John. And there's some real health issues that John is struggling with 5 knee replacements, and it's still not right. So prayers for healing and for understanding of each other with their problems. It's much needed.
And so it is. Are there any other prayer requests? For all of those prayers unspoken, for all of those who are in need of prayer and unaware that prayer is a vehicle of their communion with God, for all of those struggling with the travail of life in its various forms of health and financial and relationships. We hold them all in this crucible of unconditional love. We see this energy of God enveloping and lifting and transforming each and every person on this planet. And for this, together we say, Amen.
Amen.
So, Doug, I understand you have some music for us this morning?
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I'm
Morning,
going to play a tune written in 1930 by U.B. Blake. Lyrics were by Andy Razoff. This was a black songwriting team. U.B. Blake, this tune stood the test of time. Back in the 30s and the 20s, there were a lot of black songwriters, but not a lot of them got the recognition or the credit or even paid for their work. This is actually Black Music Appreciation Month. I don't know if they meant classic music or not, but this is a tune called Memories of You, which also stands up to being for Father's Day. So think about memories of your father. But beautiful tune by U.B. Blake, Memories of You.
Thank you, Doug. As always. Yay. Come on, man, chill. Today's Father's Day, of course. Happy Father's Day, everyone. And have happy divine masculine. We have, let me share with you the traits of the divine masculine here for a moment. So, these are characteristics that are not gender-based. They are in each and every one of us. There's the divine masculine, and we talked about the divine feminine back on Mother's Day, but today let's look at the divine masculine. The characteristic, the trait of the warrior, the logical and the analytical, the objective, the assertive, the risk taker, the boundary maker and defender, the action-oriented, the disciplined, the confident, and the survival-focused. Now, these characteristics are characteristics in the archetype, the the idea or the image in what Plato referred to as the realm of ideas. Now, if we look at the divine masculine in each of those traits, and those are not all the traits, those are just the common traits that are associated, and I'm not sure, I haven't found an authoritative, definitive, complete list of the characteristics of the divine masculine. But if we couple those or contrast those with the characteristics of the divine feminine, I'd like to have you consider that there is, for the warrior, there is a complementary divine feminine characteristic, and that I offer is the heart-centered characteristic of the divine feminine. The logical and analytical has a complementary feminine of intuitive. The objective has a complementary of reflective, the objective being the externally oriented, the reflective being the internally oriented. The assertive with a complementary trait of compassionate. The risk taker with the complementary characteristic of the wise. The boundary maker defender with accepting. Action-oriented with collaborative. Disciplined with creative. Now, disciplined in this context, in its complementary relationship, the disciplined is oriented to some focus, some objective that we're focused on achieving, having the self-discipline to do what needs to be done, right? Whereas the creative is responding to the intuitive input, it's responding to the environmental input, it's responding to the whims of ideas and how we are responsive to those whims. And then the confident versus the sensual. The confident, and this might be a bit of a stretch, but I'm looking at the confident as being a reflection upon my ego objective and having having an assertive path forward and being expressed by confident, whereas the sensual is responsive to the feeling nature of the body. So the confident is kind of a head down and full speed ahead, whereas a sensual is saying, well, let's take a look at, how I'm feeling in this way, what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing. And then the survival focus versus the forgiving. Okay, so we have this set of complementarity in the characteristics of the divine, and my purpose in offering you this orientation is that as each of us has all of these traits, both the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine as part of us, we each have a personal, unique way of expressing those traits. And sometimes those traits can be distorted, can be made profane. The sacred becomes profane in the distortion of those individual traits. Now, I'd like you to reflect upon all of the stuff of the world that seems to be gone awry, and I'm asking you for suggestions of how these things that are causing travail in the world are a distortion, are a profane expression of these sacred traits. So I open this up. Let's, as an example, the warrior trait. I think that's going to be fairly easy to see the distortion that occurs in the world, but let's have at it. Anything on that list that makes sense to you as being a distorted, evil expression in the world? Warrior, as an example. What would be in a distortion of that warrior trait?
Well, the solution to problems is military action. To go to war when there's disagreement or injury, as opposed to searching for other avenues to resolve the issue.
And on a personal level, bar fights, right? You have conflict and you take up arms. You respond in a way that I'm going to dominate. So any kind of domination activity that we see in the world, it'll be a distortion of one of those masculine sacred traits. What else? How about logical and analytical? What's a distortion?
There's now an algorithm for everything.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. More electronics than sense, or more money than sense.
Okay. All right. We talk about artificial intelligence, and one of the difficulties of artificial intelligence is that it really has no complementary, any built-in complementary attenuating force. It's algorithm driven. What else?
I think the survival aspect ties in with both of those that we've talked about so far. And for me, I think a lot of that fear might be involved in a lot of that. Fear of the loss of our identity or our physical things that we've accumulated, or our self-respect. It can operate on a emotional or physical plane. And that fear urges us to strike out. And when the fears involve the logical, we kind of skew the logical to fit our focus here.
So a profane distortion of the survival is fear, and all of the concomitant aspects, all of the detritus, all of the all of the debris that's left in our wake of fear. Yeah. Okay. What else?
Makes me think of QAnon, which is totally fear-based.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Could you put your list up again?
Yeah. Hang on just a second. Let me share that. There you go. What about disciplined? What's a profane expression of the sacred characteristic of discipline?
I don't know if
Perhaps.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Kay. No, you go.
If there are fathers who put discipline ahead of compassion with their children, that try to assert their superior strength in different ways without really being open to compassion and acceptance of their children, open to learning their points of view.
Mm-hmm. And here's an example of the fuzziness of these definitions, right? Because we talk about discipline and we drop into the assertive versus compassion, and indeed that's absolutely a reasonable expression or a reasonable comparison.
That's not the whole story of discipline, though.
Yeah, the discipline that I'm speaking of is our single vision focus on a particular objective, as opposed to correcting through punishment the wrongs that are committed by others. So this is about that single focused, following that single focus. So let me offer one, and you could certainly comment. But being very disciplined in my activities keeps me from seeing the alternative opportunities. You know that we've been doing renovation around the house, and you may also know, as I know some of you know, that our number one piece of material that we need are replacement windows, because we're residing the house and we put the windows in first, right? But with a disciplined focus that, well, these windows are not going to be out, they're not going to be available until late August. Oh, now I've got to just shift my whole timeline into the fall. Well, if I maintained that disciplined focus on that objective and those circumstances, that it didn't allow me to be open to a creative rearrangement of our task list. So that disciplined approach keeps us from being open to other approaches. How about boundary maker and defender?
For me, that is the attitude of non-acceptance, that, this is our territory or our type of people, or, we need to keep our, and it doesn't apply to all of us, of course, but...
Oh, none of us.
Right. None of us, yeah. Depends on who your kid chooses to date. Then you can really find out whether you have those biases.
Yeah. Well, what's a profane expression of boundary maker? And wouldn't that be judgment?
Mm-hmm.
That is that.
Judgmental?
Yeah, being judgmental. Whether that boundary is race or that boundary is financial status or whether that boundary is lifestyle, those boundaries are the basis upon which we make those judgments, right? So when Jesus spoke about paying attention to the log in your own eye before you try to take a mote of dust out of someone else's eye, that he's talking about this boundary making.
Back when we were discussing discipline versus creative, something I read about Michelangelo a long time ago said that he chipped away at the stone until the idea appeared. And to me, that's kind of a good example. If he started out with a definite idea of what he wanted something to look like, he might not have seen the potential things that might be different than what he originally set out. And that's so true, I think, of everything. And yet you need some discipline, you need some warrior aspect, you need a little bit of risk taker to balance it all. That's the crux of it all, is balancing the two different aspects.
Balancing those two, divine masculine, divine feminine. And having the opportunity to see the complementary characteristic in this way is actually a useful tool for us, which we'll get into here in a moment. But the opportunity for us to recognize that, these characteristics that we have, these divine sacred characteristics that we all have access to, is really an opportunity for us to reflect upon how we be in the world, how we are in our relationships, how we approach the circumstances that we are confronted with. Are we in a profane expression of those sacred characteristics? And it turns out that there's a profane expression of the female characteristics as well. But when we look around the world, I would offer this opinion, that the greatest challenge that we have in having a just and equitable society, and not just in the U.S., but I'm talking about worldwide, the primary challenge we have are the profane expressions of those divine characteristics of the masculine. So we each contribute to that, whether we're male or female. We each have those sacred characteristics, and we each are subject to the distortions of those sacred characteristics by others. But most importantly, to recognize that we are also the authors of our own profanity. We're the authors of our own distortions of these sacred characteristics. And as we recognize that, as we allow that, yes, I am a participant here. I am responsible for some of the stuff that's going on. I am responsible for the judgments that I make. I am responsible for my single-eyed focus on some objective. I am responsible for my taking up arms when I feel that there is wrong that needs to be righted, and so I'm going to barrel forth and correct that wrong because I am strong, right? Whether we're male or female, we have the opportunity to make profane these sacred traits that we hold. So the crux of my message is that perhaps the most important female characteristic that we can have is reflection. To be able to look upon what we are doing, how we are being active in the world, and to recognize that we have we have distortions, and how are these distortions affecting others? How is this profanity that we, as we distort any of these characteristics, these sacred characteristics, how can we be more divine? How can we moderate our distortions? How can we attenuate our profane expressions of these divine characteristics that we have? So, whether you are a male or a female, I'll repeat, whether you are a male or a female, you have both the masculine and the feminine. And let me offer you something that Jesus said, or is attributed to saying, that's more accurate, that I will come back to this. And in the Gospel of Thomas, saying 22, you may recognize this circumstance. Jesus saw infants being suckled. He said to his disciples, "These little ones being suckled are like those who enter the kingdom." And the disciples said to him, "Then will we enter the kingdom as little ones?" And Jesus said to them, "When you make the two into one," that is to say, when you recognize that all of the disparities that we have are part of the whole, that we are part of the one. When you make the inside like the outside, that is to say, you recognize the complementary aspects of the opposites, and the outside like the inside, and the above like the below. That is to make the male and the female into a single one, to bring together both the feminine and the masculine aspects of your divinity. And when you make eyes instead of an eye, and a hand instead of a hand, and a foot instead of a foot, and an image instead of an image, that's kind of a tough one that's kind of a tough phrase. But what he's talking about there, in my opinion, is that you need to redefine what you are looking at. You need to redefine these common things in your experience, not just objects, but rather the common things in your experience, and recognize that appearances are not as they first show up. Then you will enter the kingdom. When you make the two into one, and when you make the inside like the outside, and the outside like the inside, and the above like the below, that is to make the male and the female into a single one, so that the male will not be male and the female will not be female. And when you make the eyes instead of an eye, and a hand instead of a hand, and a foot instead of a foot, an image instead of an image, then you will enter the kingdom. Think about that. Isn't that an interesting way of putting that we need to allow ourselves to be the all that is all? To not denigrate ourselves, to say I'm just a slime of the earth, to not say that I don't have agency here. I am an expression of the divine. And when I am willing to allow the sacred of the masculine and the feminine to be part and parcel of who I am, when I look upon the circumstances of the world and I recognize that I am part of that, that's not a separate thing from me. I am part of that. I am part of you. I am part of you. I am part of you. I am an expression of the divine in all of these sacred characteristics. Practicing. But the important thing is that it's not just a mental recognition of it, but it is actually an integration of these ideas. It's changing these ideas at the foundation, that we are responsible for how we are expressing our sacred traits, profanely or in a sacred way. And the way that we do that, because our habits are ingrained at the subconscious level, the way we do that is that we use this tool that unity teaches in the five principles of unity. I call it 5 pillars of faith. I'll just review that for you here to ensure that we're all on the same page. Those 5 pillars of faith: one power and one presence, God the good, omnipotence. One Son of God, the Christ, abides in each of us. The thoughts we hold in mind manifest in our experience. The tools of transformation of consciousness: prayer, meditation, denials, and affirmations. And we change our lives by applying these principles. Now, let's go back to it. The tools of transformation of consciousness are prayer, meditation, denials, and affirmations. And when I speak of our opportunity to practice these affirmations, we need to remember that affirmations are not a standalone practice. We need the denial and then the affirmation. And for instance, a characteristic that I often express profanely is assertiveness. I know none of you are familiar with that, but this is one of my extremely vulnerable points. That's one of my most commonly expressed profanities, is that I am assertive to a fault, and the complementary characteristic, the complementary trait, is that of compassion. So as I am reflecting upon how I am interacting with someone, if I am seeing that I am doing that thing again, that I am being overly assertive, my most important step is to affirm my compassion. Deny that I must be assertive, and affirm that I can be and am now compassionate. Do you see how that works? So these complementary traits that I've outlined in this visual is one that we can look at these and we can see how we're interacting with the world, and we can then affirm that how we are interacting, that profane expression that we are using in this moment, in this relationship, in this circumstance, can be attenuated. It can be moderated by denying that I have to be that way to achieve the overall best for all, and then to empower the compassion trait and saying that in this moment, in this circumstance, I practice compassion. So what I'm going to do is, I just realized what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a picture of that slide and I'm going to post it on our Facebook page so that you have a reference to that complementary relationship between those sacred traits, and you can practice. And that's the point: is practice, 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 practice. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. So that's it. That's where we are. The divine characteristics that we hold, the divine characteristics that we have available to us, as we express those in a sacred way, those are affirming, those are empowering, those are helping our world heal. And when we express those divine characteristics, those sacred characteristics, in a profane way, we are contributing to the wounds of the world. So there it is. We'll have our meditation. So let me, here it is. Okay. As we bring ourselves into this present moment, as we allow ourselves to rest in the quiet, accepting where we are fully, forgiving ourselves for any profane expressions that we have had in the past, and recognizing that from this point forward, we have a choice. We can't change anything that has happened, but we can change in this moment how we express ourselves. We can affirm that we will remember as the circumstances arise. How am I about to express myself? I am a sacred being. I'm an expression of the divine. Right here, right now. I have the ability in this moment to be as Jesus said, the things I have done you will do also, or you can do also. And so we affirm in this moment that we will do that which is our divine expression. Living this moment in its divine potential is to be sacred. To be sacred. Not to think sacred. Not to do sacred. But to be sacred. To realize that I am a warrior that is heart-centered, that I am analytical, and I draw upon my intuitive powers, that I am assertive and compassionate in that assertion. I am a balanced, divine being, recognizing that the all is part of me and I am part of it. I have the keys to the kingdom in my hand, and the kingdom is this moment. Entering into this sacred milieu, into this sacred presence, and inviting each and every one of my relationships into this sacred realm. I facilitate that by the way I express myself here and now. I am empowered to be that which others will follow. I am empowered to be the ambassador of God here, now. I am that. I am. I am that. Over there. I am. Breathing in and breathing out, appreciating this essence that we are. We say thanks. Not thank you, God, because that's separation thinking. We say thanks in the recognition that we are the expression of the divine right here, right now. Yes, we are. And for this we give thanks. And as we come back into this time, into this space, I'd like to share with you some music from Sue Riley. Sue Riley is a favorite New Thought artist of mine, and this music is it's partly a reflection of this talk, but it's for all of those dads and wannabe dads out there.
When I'm standing in the shadows and I can't see the light, when I'm waiting at the crossroads and can't tell wrong from right, I think about your stories, I think about your life. I remember what you told me, and I know I've got to try. That's the thing about everyday heroes, everyday heroes. Help us discover that we all can be somebody's everyday hero, everyday hero. You are an everyday hero to me. Everybody has a worry and it stands in our way. But if we're gonna stop dreaming, what a steep price to pay. We can take a look around us, anywhere we go. Somebody's gonna remind us, and it's someone we know. I'm talking about everyday heroes, everyday heroes. Help us discover that we all can be somebody's everyday hero, everyday hero. You are an everyday hero to me. I hear what you're saying, I know what you mean. Heaven knows it ain't easy, but just listen to me. Everyday heroes, help us discover that we all can be somebody's everyday hero, everyday hero. You are an everyday hero to me. You are an everyday hero to me.
And so it is. If you'd like to make a contribution, you can do so either through our newsletter. The first article in the newsletter, click on that. That'll take you to a contribution page. You can mail a check to this address. It will go in the church bank account. And that address can be found on our website, livingwaterunity.org. Click on the donate button. But it's 3770 Longwood Avenue in Boulder, 80305. And with that, then, Doug, if you would please.
That was meant to be with God as creator, family or me. Let's work with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace reign with me. Let this be the Lord. Step I take, let this be my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternal. Let there be peace, and let it begin with me.
Together, please. The light of God surrounds us. The power of love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And so it is.